Garfield was very different when I first started doing him back in 1978. There's been almost this Darwinian evolution of the character in that he had expressive parts that were actually very small to begin with. He had these little tiny beady eyes, and then he had these big rabbit ears. And you notice he didn't smile very much back then. He had these great big fat cheeks. And he looked like, for me, he looked like a sort of a big giant lump of clay. Still had those stripes right here. But he sat on this big base. He didn't move very much. Little tiny tail, little tiny toes, like this. He was just pretty much of a couch potato. Sat around, took pot shots at life, and actually I had a call from a Swedish editor, Olli Petrini. He had been translating Peanuts since 1953, and he had a great touch with the comics, and he said, I think you have a very fine cartoon here, and I think it's going to do well someday, but he says, Garfield doesn't smile very much. He's so sour all the time. He said, if you let him smile, then that's good contrast with the rest of his personality. So I gave him a teddy bear, had him smile a little more, and the rest is history. A few years later, I would say about 1980, 85, you'll notice those things on Garfield that were expressive got larger. The eyes got larger. And the ears got smaller because they weren't as expressive. And bear in mind, by this time, newsprint was very expensive. Newspaper comics were shrinking in a lot of papers. So the editors were making the strips smaller, and I had to make all the features larger. So Garfield had this real round face and these real round eyes. And his body got a little bit smaller here. The limbs got a little bit longer, so they got a little more animated right here. And so he was becoming, I think, aesthetically pleasing, a little nicer looking cat. I remember back when I got started with this, when I first sent the submission into the syndicate, I'd been trying for years and years, and the president of the syndicate called and he said, I think we'll syndicate Garfield. He said, but at that time I didn't have any stripes on the cat at all. He said, I'll syndicate him if you give the cat stripes. And I thought, stripes! Brilliant! Why didn't I think of that before? Of course, then I put stripes on Garfield and we got syndicated. And so to this day, I've had to draw about 8 million stripes on Garfield. But it gives him personality. Here's one of Garfield's favorite places to be. He's in his bed. This is why he's smiling. He makes no apologies for being lazy. There we go.
You were saying that we were talking about the success you had with this venture. Was there any negative effects of becoming so successful?
I can't honestly think of a downside to all the stuff we've been doing, because for all the hard work, all the extra time, the cost, it still provided us with so much rich experience, and gave us so much background on everything we do. Just, I guess, natural depth to the kind of material, we work with. That it's all been worth it. It's been hard work, been a few tears, but an awful lot of laughter with all of this. And so that makes it worth the extra effort. In the years before Garfield, when I was playing around with a lot of cartoon ideas, I did this one character I called Norm Gnat. And I thought bugs were funny. Norm was, he's a kind of a Garfield kind of character. And but he was stood out. It was hard to tell exactly what gnats look like. They're so tiny. So I guess anything I made up was going to work just fine. Of course, gnats have little antennae like this, and he had a little body with a, here we go. And we were kind of looking at life through a gnat's eyes here. He really was very funny. He was more or less the observer. Had these kind of funny, skinny legs. I don't know how many legs a gnat really has, but again, it's a comic strip, so it doesn't really matter much. There he goes. And he had friends like Freddie the fruit fly, and fruit flies only live about 2 weeks, so Freddie was always understandably depressed all the time. But there's Norm Gnat. You know, the strip wasn't that popular. I ran it in a little local paper, and when I decided to do Garfield, I liked it so well I decided to get rid of the gnat strip. So in the last strip I ran in the paper, I had this great big foot come out of the sky and squash Norm flat. And I guess as a testament to how unpopular the strip was, I think there was only one letter to the editor protesting it. That was after 5 years. So it's best I'm not working for a gnat today.